What's up again, my friends? How's everybody doing today? Well, I'm coming at you from inside the school bus because I just made a video in here about guitars, and I was trying to inspire people who wanted to play guitar to pick it up and just do it and don't overthink it. Try to worry about technical aspects, but now I decided to make one about my camera gear because I briefly wanted to touch on that too. This is actually one of my obsessions, photography. I really love taking pictures, I'm sure you all know that, and making videos, and I'd like to get better at it. I'm definitely an amateur when it comes to all the technical aspects of cameras, but I've learned over the years because I've taken a lot of pictures. And so I wanted to show you the gear that I use for my photography, and then my little homemade case with the different types of lenses, and really it's to tell you how damn simple it is to do photography on a budget. And I would like to just say first off that the cell phones of today pretty much put a huge portion of the past market to shame. So your cell phone is going to take superior pictures, especially portrait and in sunlight, to a lot of the older cameras on the market. And I'm not talking about like film cameras, but like say some of the first digital cameras. They were horrible. So the phones are phenomenal. So if you can't afford a digital camera from in the last 10 years, you know, you're probably not going to even get as good of a picture. This one right here is a Lumix G3. It's a Panasonic. This is the second body I bought. I kept the lens and my body broke. It's all dented and old. Somebody was telling me they had an old Lumix too. It was a GH3. I'm like, the GH3 is way later than this. This thing is old. But I bought this tripod at Goodwill for 20 bucks, I think, 15 bucks. It's a Vivitar. It works really well, and it's got like a little thing to raise it up and everything. I've never had a problem with it. Anyhow, this camera itself, I mounted a little grip on it, and I found the grips to be one of the most useful things for doing macro photography. I love doing close-ups. But the beauty of these, this is a mirrorless camera with a detachable lens. Now, DSLRs have a detachable lens as well. However, you can't always use vintage lenses on a DSLR, but you can use them on this. And I got a little obsessed in years past, and I started buying these, let's just say these adapters to use old lenses. And you do not need any of this, but here's my case full of stuff. So I'll try to go through this briefly. Holding it awkwardly. So this is my Vivitar. I'll just set it down and show you individually. So this was a Vivitar lens that I bought, and I bought it at Goodwill for 20 bucks, and I thought it'd be good to use with my. Well, at the time I bought it, actually, I bought it to get an adapter to use on an older film camera. But these little adapters, they cost about 15, 20 bucks. These allow you to mount any various lens to a micro 4/3 camera, which is what these mirrorless cameras are. That lens is shit. Be careful buying lenses because the lens is great, but when you put it on the camera with the adapter, the focal range is between like, say, 20 and 40 feet. You can't go beyond or before that. There's no infinite range, so I couldn't do a telephoto from far away. On Craigslist the other day, a while back, I found this. This guy was selling it was one of the very first autofocus cameras from the 80s. It was a Minolta in a case along with two lenses, let's see, yeah. This is a Sigma zoom lens, which came with it. And it's actually, what is a 72 Sigma zoom, 28 to 105 millimeter. So it will, yeah, there we go, yeah. And it gets some pretty good look. You can look at that lens. I mean, it's a nice fat lens, beautiful. Works great for pictures, but I still don't use it, and I'll get to why. This is the telephoto lens that did work, that came with it, and this was the main reason I bought the whole thing. It's a Sigma zoom lens, and I bought the adapter for it, and it works just fine. I get complete infinite range on it. This is a 75 to 300 millimeter. These allow you to get, you know, a really close up on a bird or whatnot. But then here's the thing. All of these are just lenses that I hardly ever use. You know, I've got the fisheye lenses. I've got more adapters. These are adapters that are designed to use on. So I wanted to get to this. These are basically, they're just extension tubes. They have no lenses in them. They're designed to go on the Micro Four Thirds camera and then allow you to put a lens out much farther than you ordinarily would. What that does is it makes it makes everything look much closer, right? So you have to take pictures from far away, but it gives you a zoom range, and it gives you a macro zoom range where you can take pictures of the smallest things you can imagine. I mean, macro photography to me is amazing, which is why I built this. The easiest way to do macro photography, which is taking a picture of a bug really close up, let's say, is to flip your lens around. Literally flip the lens around and then mount it, but you can't mount it, right? So you get an adapter. So this is an adapter, one of the extension tube adapters, and it's taped on right now because it slid right into this, but I didn't want to take the time to mount it until I was sure. Then I'll probably weld it on or something, but this is an older Soligor lens, a 1 to 2.8 35 millimeter lens, and it has a really wide aperture. And you have to do everything by manual on these, older lenses, but this, when it's reversed, and the tube, allows me to take pictures of, let's just say, very, very, very close-up pictures of ants. I probably won't post it in this video because I'm just going to upload this as is instead of adding anything in. But it takes some pretty amazing close-up photos, and it's pretty much a dedicated macro lens now. And that's because the lens that comes on the Lumix right here, which they have much better lenses now. I mean, I'm getting ready to buy, I want to buy a GH5, a Lumix, but I can't afford it. I found a GH4. Somebody was selling it for $350 on Craigslist, and it was just too much. I didn't want to spend that much. And I offered him $3, then $325, and he said it was already low. I'm like, I agree. And then I went back to offer him full price, and it was gone. A GH4 is an amazing thing. What I don't have on here is an input for my microphone. So whenever I make a video where you hear the really good audio, I actually have to use this, which is my DR05 on a stick, Tascam. And it's a phenomenal voice recorder, but when you have to awkwardly mount it and keep it out of the field of view, get the levels right, and then take your video and meld it with the audio, it's much more complicated than if I just had a newer GH4, right? That actually has a microphone input, so I could just use a remote microphone and it would go right onto the camera. I spend a lot more time than I should if I had better gear, right? Which brings me to my favorite lens of all time. This lens right here. Look how wide that aperture is. I mean, it's fat. It's a fatty lens. It's what you call a prime lens. And this was from the 1970s. It came with an old Minolta that I got when my mom moved into this house like 15, 20 years ago. And somebody had left some stuff behind, and there was a camera in a bag with this lens on it. I carried it around with me for the last 20 years until I finally bought this little adapter, which this is the actual lens. It's called a pancake lens. It's very small. It's a Rocore 1 to 2 45 millimeter lens, Minolta. Once this is mounted on here and then mounted on my camera, it turns it from a 35 millimeter lens into, I guess it would be smaller. I think that's how it works. So it'd be like more like a 20 millimeter or something, because you have to, if you want to take a picture of a subject, they have to be at least 3 or 4 feet away to focus. But then you have to be more like 10 feet away to get a decent picture. And for a person to get a full body in frame, it's like 20 feet or more away. And there's terms for all that, but I want to keep this simple. And plus, I don't remember all the stuff right now. Focal point, focal length, and distance of subject. The aperture, the wider the aperture is, the more bokeh you get. So that means if somebody's standing in front of me 10 feet and I take a headshot with this lens, and then the entire background is completely blurred, unless the aperture, which is that hole in there, is closed. If the aperture is closed, then you'll get more blur because you get less light to, the sensor, right? But you also get more detail in the background. So in other words, it's a very simple concept. The smaller the aperture, the more detail you get, but the more still you have to have the subjects. The wider the aperture, you can take a quick shot, but you're going to get a lot of blurring, which is what I love. I love bokeh. And then there's aspherical lenses and all these crazy new things that people are buying and trying to remake these old vintage lenses. I used to be able to go to Goodwill and just find lenses all the time, and they disappeared. Then I started finding, after all the old vintage cameras had been bought up, of course, because they were collector's items, now they started selling, you know, just all the old, what they call the granny pocket cameras, the old disposable 35 millimeters. They were everywhere on the shelf, all the time. Those aren't there anymore. You know why? Because they're actually becoming desirable. People are going back to film. So, but I still love digital for now because I can take a lot more photos. So anyway, I just wanted to oh, there was one more thing I guess I had to say. The two things that I use for slow shutter speed or for doing night shots, which is one of my favorite, is one of these, which is an intervalometer. It's basically a $20 little thing that allows you to remotely hit the shutter so you don't bump it when you're trying to take a picture at night. If you hit the button, the other option, if you don't have an intervalometer, is just put it on a timer, right? Very simple. So that means you just put it on like a 2-second timer before the photo is taken, and then you take a long, like 30-second shot. But when it comes to macro photography, this was another thing that came with that Minolta I bought, and it's just a simple flash, but it has an extension cable. Now, if I was rich, I'd just buy, of course, like what they call like the lightning flash or whatever, where they're all connected remotely through Bluetooth. I can't afford that. But this is very simple concept. Mounts on the top of the camera here, locks on, chink chink, right? And then I can mount this up on this part, and I can lock it in, but you can also hold it manually. And the reason that's so good is because when you're doing really close-up shots of bugs and things like that, you have to do sometimes what they call layering, especially if you want a really detailed shot. Most people won't bother with that. You get a lot of blur in the picture, that's fine. But if you want a picture of a small bug with everything in focus, in order to do that, you often have to do layering, where you focus on one area, then the next area, and you stack all of that in Photoshop. Fuck all that. Sorry, I just don't do any type of post-production. It's not my thing. I'm saying it's great. They look beautiful. But for the average photographer, it's not going to be something they're going to be doing regularly. So you can still get good macro shots without being scared off by having to stack everything. But you'll have to practice around with it. Ultimately, I'm still learning too. I'm experimental. I like to put on strange lenses and caps and filters and see what works. And I really like spiral bokeh, which you get from a lot of really old lenses. You'll see them on like old plate photography where the subject's in focus, but everything looks like it's swirling around them. And you can kind of duplicate that with some vintage lenses. So if you run across an old lens or an old camera with a fixed lens, you might be able to utilize that on your camera. So those are some thoughts. Let me know what y'all think. And I guess I just wanted to share some camera thoughts, because I know there were a few kind of camera nerds out there like me who said they, when I mentioned it last time, they wanted more details. So that's what I use. A beat up old 10-year-old Lumix G3 camera, but I'm hoping to get the GH5 soon, which would allow me to, I mean, it's got 4K. They're amazing. It has everything on it that I don't have. So a man can dream, right? Be well, my friends. I'll talk to y'all. Maybe if Panasonic is out there watching, they'll send me a free one. We'll see. Not. Paid promotion. No, not a paid promotion. I actually love Panasonic. I think they're a phenomenal company. All the products I've ever had from them, just like the camcorders. The one I'm using to record is a Sony camcorder that I got at Goodwill. But it was like $1,200 new. But I got it for like $50 at Goodwill. Very small, compact, and it's pretty good. But they had a Panasonic just like it, and that thing was like, the picture on it, it was like 10 years ago. The picture on it was just, today I can't even get pictures on my camera that good. It's just crazy. It's kind of hit and miss with photography, and I guess it depends on what you like, what type of visual appeal that the pictures and the videos you have. So, talk to y'all later. Be well. Take good pictures.